The initiate strives to attain the state of equilibrium and absolute poise. He yearns to master the art of traversing the razor edge of life, balancing himself perfectly like the trained mental athlete that he is, by means of the balancing pole of the opposites, which he has firmly grasped, pitting the opposites one against the other, balancing law by law. The master traverses the slender tightrope thread which separates the world of desire from the world of will. O neotype, in the center of life shalt thou indeed find poise and power. In the heart of the storm shalt thou find peace. In the center of the cosmos shalt thou find thyself. He who finds the center of himself finds the center of the cosmos, for at the last they are one. The student, when confronted with questions and problems in which a choice is difficult by reason of the strong activity of both extremes of polarization, of both of the pair of opposites, is advised to seek out the center between the two opposing poles, and to stand firmly there, feeling assured that there, and there only, is the place of peace, poise, and power. In the one word, balance, there is to be found the secret of many or most of the perplexing questions of life. Seek ever poise and balance, and you will have power and peace. The further the student penetrates in his investigations along the lines of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, the more will he become convinced of the truth of the ancient occult axiom that everything has its opposite, which is the other pole of its manifestation. Now this next is the principle of sex. The principle of sex manifests in the universal presence of sex distinction and activity which is apparent in all of the manifested world, from its highest to its lowest manifestation. The spirit of this principle was expressed in the ancient occult axiom: sex is omnipresent and all-pervasive in the universe. All creation is generation, and all generation proceeds from sex. All deep students of occultism, and many students of modern science, perceive the truth of the Rosicrucian ancient doctrine that sex is all-pervasive, all-present, and is the cause of all creation. For creation always results from generation, and generation proceeds from sex activity. There is sex manifested in everything. The masculine and feminine principles are ever at work in the universe. This not only on the physical plane of being, but also on the mental and the spiritual planes as well. Oh, I lost my place. On the physical plane, sex manifests physical generation. On the mental plane, it manifests mental generation. And on the spiritual plane, it manifests spiritual generation. An understanding of the cosmic principle of sex will give one a clear insight into many subjects which have proved perplexing to the majority of thinkers. In a preceding chapter of this book, we have called your attention to the fact that the activities of the electrons, the atoms, and the corpuscles of which matter is composed are purely sexual activities, that all attraction is sex attraction, and that all cosmic activity results from attraction. Therefore, sex is the motive power behind the activities of the cosmos. A careful examination of the discoveries of modern science, which are being announced from year to year, will convince the student that all are explainable under the Rosicrucian theory of the principle of sex, and are explainable under no other hypothesis. Passing on to the plane of mind, we find that many of the discoveries of modern psychology tend to verify the Rosicrucian theory also. Modern psychologists are devoting much time and space to their presentations of the various theories and discussions of that other mind, which they variously call the subjective mind, the subconscious mind, the subliminal mind, etc. In all of their theories, however, one point stands out prominently: the point that this other mind is subject to stimulating influences from the conscious or objective mind, and after being so subjected to the influence of or stimulus of the latter, the other mind becomes fertile and produces a wealth of ideas, thoughts, and actions. But so far, none of the psychologists have even attempted to explain the nature of the influence or stimulus of the one mind upon the other. And here is where the Rosicrucian teachings are much needed. For the Rosicrucian recognizes and realizes at once the fact that the other mind is feminine, and the stimulating mind is masculine, and that the process is clearly one of fertilization, followed by mental conception and generation. So clear is the analogy that one has but to have his attention directed toward it to realize its truth and its proper application to the cause before us. It is so clear that one, on learning it, cannot see why the promulgators of the dual mind theories and their commentators can have failed to perceive the secret underlying the phenomena discovered by them and embodied in their various theories. Thompson J. Hudson, in his book, The Law of Psychic Phenomena, in which in 1893 he announced his celebrated theory of the dual mind, came near to perceiving this secret hidden in the teaching of the ancient occultists, but his prejudices caused him to pass it by. In his statement at the beginning of his second chapter of said book, he says, "The mystic jargon of the Hermetic philosophers discloses the same general ideal, the general ideal of the duality of mind, but he failed to follow up the promising lead and thus lost the opportunity to complete his discovery or rediscovery, for the duality of the mind's activities has been known to occultists for ages. The other mind of the human individual may be regarded as a mental womb. In fact, the ancients so styled it, in which it generated a wealth of mental offspring. It is a mine of latent possibilities of generation, the generation of mental progeny of all sorts and kinds. Its powers of mental generative energy are enormous, but it does not generate except under the stimulus of the conscious mind of its owner or some other individual. The phenomena of suggestion and hypnotism are explainable under the Rosicrucian theory of mental sex. A writer on this subject has said, "Suggestion and hypnotism operate in the same way, by the masculine principle projecting its vibrations toward the feminine principle in the mind of the person, the latter taking the seed thought and allowing it to develop into maturity when it is born on the plane of consciousness. The masculine principle in the mind of the person giving the suggestion directs a vibratory current toward the feminine principle in the mind of the person who is the object of the suggestions, and the latter accepts it according to natural laws, unless the will interposes an objection. The seed thought thus lodged in the mind of the other person grows and develops, and in time is regarded as the rightful mental offspring of the person, whereas it is really like the cuckoo's egg placed in the nest of the sparrow, and like the offspring of the cuckoo, it destroys the rightful offspring of the owner of the nest. The proper method is for the masculine and feminine principles in the mind of a person to coordinate and to act harmoniously in conjunction with each other. But, unfortunately, the masculine principle in the mind of the average person is too lazy to act, the activities of the will too slight, the consequence being that such persons are ruled almost entirely by the minds and wills of other persons, whom they allow to do their thinking and willing for them. The majority of persons are but mere shadows and echoes of other persons having stronger wills and minds than themselves. The strong men and women of the world invariably manifest the masculine principle of will, and their strength depends materially upon this fact. Instead of living by the impressions made upon their minds by others, they dominate their own minds by means of their own will, obtaining the kind of thoughts desired, and moreover, they dominate the minds of others likewise in the same manner. Look at the strong people, see how they manage to implant their seed thoughts in the minds of the masses of the people, thus causing the latter to think thoughts in accordance with the desires and wills of the strong individuals. This is why the masses of the people are such sheep-like creatures, never originating an ideal of their own, nor using their own powers of mental activity. The manifestation of mental sex may be noticed all around us in our daily life. The magnetic persons are those who are able to use the masculine mental principle in the direction of impressing their ideas upon others. The actor who makes people weep or cry as he wills is employing this principle more or less unconsciously. So is the successful orator, statesman, preacher, writer, or other person who is before the public. The peculiar influence exerted by many persons over others is explainable in this way. The operation of mental sex activity in the form of vibratory mental currents. Here we may find the secret of personal magnetism, personal influence, fascination, etc. The principle of sex manifests and operates also on the spiritual plane of being according to its characteristic principles, and its results are spiritual generation and regeneration. We regret that we are not permitted to go deeply into this phase of the subject of this book, but a detailed consideration of the operation of sex on this high plane would be contrary to the interest of the best in occultism, and would invite a misuse of power on the part of unprincipled persons who fail to understand the evil consequences to themselves coming as a reaction following actions of this kind. The true student, however, by using his power of reasoning by analogy, doubtless will be able to work out some of the problems concerned with the phase of the question thus mentioned. Such will find the secret of the old axiom, as above, so below, as below, so above. The further the student penetrates in his investigations along the lines of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, the more will he become convinced of the truth of the ancient occult axiom that sex is omnipresent and all-pervasive in the universe. All creation is generation, and all generation proceeds from sex. And this finishes the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, which ended in the word sex. I find that a little bit funny. But I have enjoyed reading this, and I can see that there could be so much more to learn about this last one he was talking about that would give a person power over others that they could and maybe would use to their own detriment and to the detriment of others. So it's for reasons like that this could be used wrong. If the wrong people get a hold of this kind of information, which he didn't really give you here, he just gave you a hint at it, that is why some organizations have to be secret, because until the time is that people can be trusted with this kind of information, and maybe we're moving toward that time, I don't know. I know a lot of the secret mystery schools are releasing a lot of information that people a few years back couldn't get their hands on. So we are moving. We are maybe increasing our spiral to higher levels as we go around. But a lot of people are talking about this right now, how that if you will believe, well, it's sort of like in the Bible where Jesus had said, "Whosoever shall say to this mountain, be removed, be thou cast into the sea, and not doubt in his heart, but believe the things he says, he shall have whatsoever he says. That is a power that is ours. It's obtainable. And if we, all of us began, or enough of us began thinking good thoughts along a certain line, we can create in others a belief in what we have convinced ourselves is true. And we're going to have to convince ourselves that it is true even amid the physical illusion that it isn't true. We have to do the thing, I've talked about this before, it's the God thing. We have to call what is not as though it were. But don't go around calling what is as though it isn't. That only makes you look foolish. But do call what is not as though it were. And the things that are seen that are not to our liking, I think the best place to be with that is to pretty much just leave it alone, because it will come around when we believe strongly enough in the truth we want to present to ourselves and to the world. And so everybody, think good thoughts and tell good stories, and don't stay too much convinced that there's conspiracies and they're out to get us. Keep your mind off of that, because that only moves you into the path of fear and into the path of distrusting everyone, and of hate too. I used to look at some of the conspiracy theorist channels, and all it did for me was make me want to feel anger and hatred toward those who would do such terrible things. But these days I realize some of the ones that I find who are for things that seem to me to be evil, well, they're my own family members. They're my own kinfolks and friends, and I don't wish anything but that they would come to understanding. I don't want to feel hate toward them. I want to love them into the light. And so I'm not going to put myself in opposition. I'm going to find that center point, that place of poise and balance between two opposites of things, and stay there, so I will have the power, and I don't have to all the time worry about things and how things are going to turn out. Just let go of the worry, lop off your head, and get into your heart. That's my advice. Anyway, I have enjoyed reading this to everyone, and I love comments, so if you care to comment. Also, if you care to have this file, I can send it to you. I have it in my Google Documents now, and it's easily sent to anyone who will let me know what their email address is. But don't ask me for it without giving me your email address, or I can't send it to you. So many people do that. Will you send this? And I have to write them back and say, yes, I will, but I have to have a place to send it to. So let me hear from you if you would like to have this file, because there's some really good thoughts in it you would like to print out. And thanks to this wonderful internet and all the modern inventions, we can get the word out there in type, in writing it, saying it, speaking it, and so many ways that we're bound to be in the upper hand of getting good news out there. And good news will change everything. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.